Hello and welcome to another episode of the Simon Friends podcast. I'm Simon Short. Joining me tonight is longtime friend of the pod for one of the best shows we do each and every year. Ronan Summers is here. Ronan, welcome back, man. How you doing?
Thank you so much for having me for what is this, the fifth year you
Fifth
said?
year. This is the
Crazy.
fifth annual QB predictions pod. Crazy.
This is probably one of my favorite pods to do, which is kind of funny because it comes at like such a bittersweet time because usually for us we do it
Yeah.
after the Super Bowl, but nonetheless, we've got one game left. So we're basically already looking past. We're looking to the future.
This is kind of what gets me through the end of the year and like gets me really excited for the off season doing the show because this is the first time I really let my brain slow down and think about it all at once. You get the stuff throughout the season. Okay, Kyler goes to IR, or Tua gets benched, or Daniel Jones torn Achilles, like all these things. And so you think about it kind of one at a time, like a la carte as the season goes, and you fire off a retweet, a Schefter quote tweet or something like that, and then you don't really think about it again. Um, but then when I sit down to do this every year, this is where I like think about the whole landscape again, try to wrap my whole brain around it. But Ron, I gotta say, man, 5 years is a long time because we're now behind the curveball. People are starting to do these same. First off, we did this exercise, and this was all credit to you. The first time we did this show, it was because you wrote an article for what was once called championshipsportsmedia.com. And I
Yes.
essentially just interviewed you about all your picks. And it was mostly because I was mad that you put Carson Wentz on the Steelers. Might not be the last Carson Wentz mention of the podcast, by the way. Um, and then I think it was around January at that point. We started doing the show in February as like a post Super Bowl thing, but and like other than just like blog sites like ours that were just doing anything for clicks at that point, none of the major media were doing that until like free agency primers after the beginning of March kind of thing. Now people are starting to do QB carousel pieces in November. I mean, I saw one from the Ringer like right around Thanksgiving, and I was just like, my God, we're either gonna have to rebrand this somehow or do this like week one of each season
Yeah.
for the following year, like with no context of how the season goes. Um, but I'm very excited. This is great. What we're just starting to talk about it before we hit record here. Now that we're doing this for 5 years, do you find this getting easier each year or more difficult each year? How are you feeling about it?
I think it's just consistently been as difficult as it was the first year, just because, you can think everything will match up, right? But in the grand scheme of things, you don't know who's going to match up with who truly until it
Hmm.
gets down to the nitty-gritty. And even the coaches and players don't know that they're going to match up. It's a roll of the dice for some of these guys that we'll get to that are potentially going to go on 1 to maybe 2 year contracts.
Hmm. And the coaches is such a great point because we've been doing a ton of coaching carousel stuff between me and Ben and Boxcore Network, Pro Football Enterprises, and the coaching cycle like is just barely ending. Like we just had the Cardinals ink Matt LaFleur to his head coaching job with them. And so I then kind of almost had to recalibrate my brain to like, okay, what would LaFleur want? After doing this whole exercise already. Okay, doing this with like a shadowy, nameless, faceless head coach in mind for the Cardinals, and now there's actually a person there, and you have to think about what that is. And never mind the fact that none of these guys have OCs yet either. We have like, I think 18 offensive coordinators are going to end up changing this year, some wild number like that between fired and then promoted to head coach other places and gone with the head coach staff. So he goes somewhere else sort of deal. So there's a lot up in the air from a coaching perspective, which makes it hard to match. So then you're getting into the contract stuff. And, history says we're going to have a lot of changes, right? So the last 4 years, 2022 to 2025, there have been 9, 12, 9, and 11 week one quarterback changes each year. And I got to say, Ron, I don't feel like I have nine changes in me. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm right there with you, Simon. The number that I've got is definitely not 9, and it's definitely not over 10. Um, and it might be a testament to just the overall development of some of these
Yes.
quarterbacks because we've seen, obviously a lot of these guys who are on their second, third, maybe even fourth stint be able to turn things around and become a quality starter for a playoff team as, we've got Sam Darnold in the Super Bowl this week. So, yeah, I think it's a testament to the talent coming out of college and then the coach's development ability in the NFL.
I 100% agree. That's exactly what I wrote down because and I've always talked about this ever since we started potting together, where we had a whole era of quarterbacks that we were missing from draft classes, right? Between Andrew Luck and RG3 retiring early, and then just like 5 years of not very good quarterbacks. Like, is Derek Carr's maybe the best one drafted between those guys, and then to the Mahomes class in 2017. Then you got a good class after, great classes after that. So we were missing that era. And I agree with you. I think 2022 to 2025, those off seasons, that's where we were really missing it. That's where we were missing those established good starters that would be on second and into third contracts with the team. And I mean, even Derek Carr, when he finally left the Raiders and goes to the Saints, like that, even that still felt very like predictable and solid for doing this exercise because it was okay, great. Where's Derek Carr gonna go in the middle of his third contract with the Raiders when they, now that they're gonna pivot from that era? But we were doing those pivots with guys that were like year two, year three guys every other year, basically, instead of just having those long-standing guys either kind of staying with one team all the way through their career or being one blockbuster to finally go. So this year, I think we have a lot of good drafted players from 2023, 2024, 2025. And not so much in the, I say a lot, not necessarily like quantity, like we've had five guys in each of those classes, but those guys are all sticking now into year three, four, five, essentially, with the exception of maybe one or two. Um, so we have a really good pool of candidates to work with. And I also think that the guys that were kind of questionable between the uh, Baker, Darnold, Josh Allen class to the rookie class coming in, or last year's rookie class came more. The guys that were kind of in that questionable range for those years, I think we solidly feel like they're going to go one way or the other this offseason. They're not as big of a question, or like they're going to be the starter next year, but like we don't feel confident in it. Um, and I think that also kind of helps know who the moving pieces are going to be. Which teams are actually going to be moving on and looking for those spaces is what's going to be a little trickier to find out. But we are going to do our best. Quickly, for anybody here that's like, hey man, talk about this season because the Super Bowl's about to happen. This episode's coming out on Thursday. If you're here on YouTube, thank you for being here. If you're listening to audio A1 Day 1, we appreciate you as always. Let's quickly look back at
Oh,
the
yikes.
last time you were on this pod, and it
We
was our
don't have
preseason.
to.
It was our preseason position group draft, and I think I did like a mid-season check-in. Um, and I think Kev, shout out to Kev, was the winner at that point. He certainly wins now. Joe Burrow, quarterback, Detroit Lions, pass catchers and running backs, Bucks offensive line, injured all year, but I think still probably at least the second best group that was drafted. Cleveland Browns defensive front seven. Don't know if you heard. Myles Garrett set the sack record with an asterisk this season, and then the Denver Broncos defensive backs, pretty good. Um, you though, you get like bonus points. I don't know exactly what we would call it, but you had the one team represented in the Super Bowl. You were the only one that took someone from the Patriots or Seahawks. You took the Patriots DBs, and I took the one team that has never had an interception in NFL history during a season, and that was the New York Jets defensive back. So good on me. They also traded Sauce Gardner, which is like 80% of the reason, and Michael Carter the second. Wow, they traded two good, starting cornerbacks during the season. So bad on me. But great job, man. Way to go. You got. We don't have to talk about your other picks, but you had a
Yeah,
Patriots
no.
representative. So way to go.
Yeah, I mean that basically counts for like 10 points. So, in my eyes, I'm the winner.
I agree. I agree. Okay. That was just a quick little fun recap for you all. So let's get into it. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go division by division. Everyone's gonna pick what division we do. I'm gonna tell them who I have locked in, what starters I essentially have that were the starters in 2025 that I'm saying are gonna be locked into 2026. Ronan will tell me if he has anything different. We'll have that discussion. And then if there's whatever team slash player I don't have locked in, I'll bring those up. I'll give my prediction. Ronan will give his. We'll have back and forth that way. Um, Again, this is the official, way too early quarterback prediction pod. We're predicting the week one starters for all 32 teams. We'll go over some draft picks. We'll go over some trade potential, some free agent potential, and just who is going to be back with their squad in 2026. I will give a preview. I have, where did I write this down? I have, I think, 22 locks, and I have 10 kind of questionable conversations to, which means they could stay or not, all the way to definite changes. So that's kind of the ratio we're looking at. So, Ronan, what division do you want to start with?
We can go ahead and start. Let's go to the NFC South. Let's go ahead and do that one.
Going to get me in trouble. Talk about new information, right? Because the Atlanta Falcons are going to be the one for us to talk about here. Because I have locked in Bryce Young and the Panthers, Tyler Shuck and the Saints, Baker Mayfield and the Bucks. Do you have those three as locks as well?
I do.
Okay. Did you have any pause about locking Bryce Young?
No, no.
No.
After this
Okay.
year, I think he took a step in the right direction. I think that entire regime actually has a bright spot moving forward.
And for me with Young, I don't know if it necessarily means like, oh, he's going to be good. Oh, he's going to be a franchise quarterback. Oh, they should give him, they have to make the decision in the next couple months on if they're going to pick up his fifth year option. He is eligible to be extended after this season. I don't think an extension's coming. I could see the fifth year option happening. I could see them just playing out year four. But I think he and the offense played well enough that they have so many other things that they should focus on instead. Like you know what, you've got something in here at quarterback. Just go ahead and ride with that. Maybe draft somebody day two, but I don't think they're moving on from Bryce Young in a significant way in 2026. So let's get to the Atlanta Falcons. Did you have a locked in for the Atlanta Falcons?
Yeah, yeah, I had
Okay.
Penix. I
Okay.
think that I think that they spent the capital on him to where, he got hurt last year. He looked good enough, question mark, where I think you have to at least give him this season. Now, if he gets hurt again, he did have the injury history in college, so
hmm
that's probably where you start looking elsewhere. But I think with this surrounding cast, he has all the opportunity to succeed. And with Stefanski coming in, I mean, he's a two-time coach of the year. So if he's not able to take strides forward this year, I think that's whenever you look, maybe move him, maybe, just let him ride the bench until further notice. But yeah, I've got Penix for the Falcons in 26.
So my main question, the main reason this isn't locked in for me is just the injury. Like, when is he going to be ready? What will he look like? But that's kind of like a cheating one. Again, for the purposes of just wanting change, I consider this a slight change. And I'll get to who that person is in a minute. Let's see. So this episode's coming out Thursday. So Tuesday, I had my episode with Ben come out, and I had a small rant about the Falcons and the whole Kirk Cousins contract situation and what it means for what they're doing and all this, because I thought between the way Cousins ended the season and Stefanski coming in, that Cousins was going to be locked in and back, right? Because their cap situation isn't actually too bad. They wouldn't save a significant enough amount of money by moving on from Cousins at this point to really do anything different for them. Because I think they would have gone from like 17 million cap space before restructures to like 33, 34. So like you're in the same ballpark of cap space at that point, and you have Penix who's coming back from the injury. So I don't know exactly what that's going to look like. I thought that would be sealed in the back pocket. Then they restructure his contract. That essentially means they're going to move on from him. They're done. They're pushing what his base salary would have been next year into 2027. They'll take a bigger dead cap hit in 27. They'll save a little bit of money in 2026, even though it's going to be like a post Q1 cut, so it's not even really going to help them in free agency. I don't really know why they did it, but they did it. I guess I say that I'm going to be nerdy. There's something about he had 10 mil guaranteed, so and that would have started at the new league year, and they couldn't, because of that they couldn't cut him before it. It was really weird contract minutia stuff. I don't even want to get into. So that aside, my question mark is just, is Penix going to be healthy enough week one? And all I did was say Joe Flacco's a free agent. Uh, Joe Flacco went to Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland two separate times, And Stefanski did Flacco a solid by trading him halfway through the year so he could go start and play for the Bengals throughout the season. So I could see Stefanski bringing in Joe Flacco as a free agent as insurance for, hey man, maybe, you always have one good month in you because you're 600 years old. So get one good month in and sling the ball around. We'll let Penix come back slow. And also, you can run this offense. You can help these young guys on offense really kind of get it together and figure things out. I do wonder long term what Penix and Stefanski is going to look like because Stefanski is the under center play action guy and Penix just wants to be in shotgun and get rid of the ball. But for 2026, I agree. I think Penix is their guy. They want to try and make that work. But in the event that Penix is going to be out the start of the season or a couple weeks or even just slow through training camp, I could see Joe Flacco coming in with Stefanski.
I love that. I love that. I think that makes perfect sense. He'd obviously be inexpensive, and it's not like he's playing super terrible ball, you know? I
Yep.
think you're exactly right. You're going to get a pretty decent month out of him at least. So, yeah, I like bringing in Flacco at the very least to help, the other guys learn the offense because he's been under Stefanski, like you said, for so long.
I want to make sure that he is actually free. He's got to be a free agent. There's no way that. Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. Oh my
Tell me
God,
he
he had
didn't
like
get a
four
5-year
void years
deal.
on his contract. Why does he have void years on his contract?
So he did get a 5-year deal.
He technically got a five. It goes through 2020, but there's no dead cap or savings. Okay, over the cap's doing something weird. All right, whatever. Anyways, I'm not going to worry about that. Joe Flacco, week one starts. So Atlanta Falcons fans, have fun getting older at quarterback to at least start the year in 2026. Ronan, what division are we going to next?
Let's go to the NFC East.
Okay, I have four locks here.
Yeah,
Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, Dak Prescott, Jackson Dart.
agreed. Yeah,
Um, I'm going to throw a curveball at you here.
here we
With
go.
Todd Monken going to Cleveland, who do you want to be OC for Jackson Dart? Do you have a thought?
Gosh, I don't know. It's going to have to be somebody that's willing to be okay not having the reins. And I think coach's ego gets in the way sometimes,
Hmm.
and Harbaugh is a really good coach, but I think he's going to want things done a certain way, so
Hmm.
it's going to have to be a guy that is willing to listen to him, hear him
Hmm.
out, and kind of conform to whatever he's preaching. And
Yeah.
I off the top of my head, I can't list a guy that fits that necessarily prototype.
See, I think the recent ones that they're interviewing that I've seen have been like Jim Bob Cooter, who would be coming from the Colts, but he was once a Detroit Lions coach. Um, and then there Cliff Kingsbury is still like a hot name out there. But I wonder if Cliff, like the way things left with the Commanders, if he would fit that bill. He might want to go somewhere where he can spread his wings a little bit because things went so well the first year in Washington and seemed like you could write off injuries for a year or two, but then feathers were ruffled at the end. Um, I floated Greg Roman just coming right back to a hardball. Now that after he was with John so long in Baltimore and then goes with Jin there, he would be a good like floor raiser for Dart and those young guys. Just establish some sort of competent baseline. But then Roman's never the guy that you take all the way. All right, where are we going next? What's the next division?
Let's go to the NFC North.
All right. All right. Yeah, the NFC, man, they're too good. I have three locks here. I have Jordan Love, Caleb Williams, Jared Goff.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a lock on a Vikings quarterback?
I don't have a lock. No,
Okay.
this one is a fun shot in the dark. How about you? What do you got here?
I want to hear your fun shot in the dark.
Okay. I don't. It's not a shot in the dark because it makes a lot of sense on paper. I'm sure it's rumored, everywhere on Twitter because we're leading up to the Super Bowl. Everybody's got to talk about something. I went with Mac Jones here to the Vikings.
Ooh, okay. Cool,
I
cool,
think
cool.
it
I do
makes a
want, yeah.
lot of sense. Jones obviously had success in that Shanahan offense. KOC kind of comes from that tree. So I think that, familiarity in the style of offense, obviously, there's different intricacies, throughout each and every coach. But I think Jones and KOC could definitely collab, similarly to, how Darnold did whenever he was there. And honestly, I think the McCarthy trial runs over. he did not look good this year. I think he had more interceptions to touchdowns. Obviously he got banged up. And there were a few good quarters, but whenever you're looking at specific quarters and not even full bodies of work during the game, that's whenever you kind of got to swallow the pill that you're covering up for him, right? Um, you know, I think Mac is the type of quarterback that would fit in this Vikings offense because they have the supporting cast around them. At least they have Justin Jefferson. You can kind of work from there. They do have
Hmm.
other pieces as well with Jordan Addison, um, and then obviously the awesome play caller in KOC. So I think Jones could find success there in Minnesota, and at least for this year, they could do it pretty cheap. In comparison to some of these top QB deals. You know, it's not necessarily rumored, but Kyler and the Cardinals, right?
Hmm.
Nobody really knows what's going on there. He'd be a pretty penny to bring in there.
Yep.
That's an expensive roll of the dice. Mac
Yep.
Jones, you can probably, well, he's on the 49ers this year, so you're obviously going to have to trade him.
Yep.
There's that, relationship between Shanahan and KOC where I think Shanahan would let Mac Jones go. So yeah, I rolled with Mac Jones to the Vikings. I'm interested to see where you went with this one.
I do like this. So my whole thing, like, Mac Jones along with Malik Willis, who I'm sure we'll talk about later, have been the two kind of like darling, sort of get cheap trial kind of quarterbacks, that you could do without making one of the big moves like Kyler or trying to make a draft pick. My thing with Mac Jones and the Niners, I know what you're saying about Shanahan doing him a solid. If I'm Shanahan and I've had this much bad luck with injuries since I've been there, why would I give away a good backup quarter? I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't. Now, this team is starved for talent, right? The 49ers. I don't know, man. Like, what is it a second round pick for Mac Jones? What do you have to trade to get Mac Jones in the building? And if you're the Vikings who have been at a draft pick deficit for a couple years, how much are you willing to get? What do you think that line is? What do you think the 49ers would want? And then what do you think the Vikings would be willing to give?
I would say asking price is probably a second. I
Hmm.
think at the end of the day, you could probably get it done. Gosh, I don't know. That's where I need the chart, but maybe like
Oh
a
gosh.
third and some change or two
Yeah.
fourths, like a
Hmm.
fourth this
Hmm.
year and the fourth the following year,
Yeah.
something along those lines. But even, that might be cheap for a potential starting quarterback who, really helped the 49ers get to the point that they did in the playoffs.
I want to see the over the cap does have like a trade point system for players versus draft picks. I'm not gonna be able to find it right now, but that is something that would be interesting. Yeah, I would imagine the 49ers would ask for a second. I would imagine because the Vikings now have all their picks back, so they're back at even. Yeah, maybe like a third and a fifth or a third and a sixth or something like that would get it done. And if you're the 49ers, I mean there are interesting backup QB options out there now for the 49ers, including the guy I'm gonna say ends up in Minnesota, and it's not gonna be a change as a week one starter. I think JJ McCarthy is going to be the week one starter. Um, but I'm gonna go with Kirk Cousins coming back to Minnesota. I just mentioned him with
Interesting.
Atlanta. Um, I know Cousins wants to be a starter again. He did not like the way it went down in Atlanta. I know he felt for Penix. I know it wasn't any bad animosity between them or anything, but I know he was enjoying being the starter in Atlanta again and playing at least better than he did in 2025. So I think he's going to want a place where he can start, and I think there is a place I actually like him better as a potential week one starter. But I like the Vikings better for him because I think it's a situation there where you've invested all this in JJ. I think KOC was highly involved in getting JJ on the team and making moves around having a quarterback that wouldn't just be a 1 year rental or you're on this expensive quarterback trajectory. But that said, next year is going to be year three for JJ. So he's not going to be that cheap guy for much longer. And I thought all the turmoil throughout the season was overblown about the whole thing because yes, McCarthy wasn't playing well, but I said this on some pod. You didn't draft JJ McCarthy to win the Super Bowl in 2025. You did it to win it in 2027 or 2028. and have
Right.
a guy for 10 years. Um, that said, ever since the season ended, we see all these grumblings that have been happening in Minnesota seemingly all year. And then Kwesi Adofo-Mensah gets fired 24 hours after defending the J.J. McCarthy and Sam Darnold decision at the Senior Bowl. So, like, ownership is still smarting over that decision, right? Um, I think this is a you sign Kirk Cousins, you give him like the biggest backup quarterback contract you can do. You kind of rectify the Daniel Jones thing, letting him walk out of the building, right? You essentially give him the Daniel Jones, and you could do 2 for 30 if you wanted, right? Like just really blow it out of the water as like the top paid backup in the league. And it shows everybody, it's a show of goodwill that, hey, if JJ has a bad 4 weeks, we're going to Kirk Cousins in October and we're going to try and make the playoffs. Again,
Right.
not what I'm like would want to do. I'm all for just like ride it out with the young guy because he's only had a year, and he's working back from the injury and everything at the beginning of the season. So, but I think for it's the great homecoming story, all that. But I think they fit stylistically with Kirk and what the way he wants to play and what he wants to do. Um, and it would be a situation where he could come in and immediately just like provide not accountability, but like a seriousness, an adult in the room situation where everybody could come in and a level of calm, right? If JJ is looking over his shoulder and worried the whole time, then it wasn't going to work anyways. He should see it as like this is a guy that's been here before, been with these guys before, has done this for a long time, can help me. And everybody else should say, okay, we're going to put all our faith in JJ because KOC's going to come out and say, hey, he's still our guy. He's the starter. Let's put the C on his chest. He gets all the first team reps at camp. It's not a competition. Kirk is here to be a high level backup, but everybody knows in the back of their head if this goes wrong, Kirk's going to come in and we're going to be all right. Um, Now this isn't cheap. You mentioned like the good thing about Mac Jones is he has a 2 year contract for like $6 million combined. His contract is super cheap, so even if you have to trade a high pick, financially you're not hit that hard.
Right.
But to make this kind of move, the Vikings, because they have like the second worst cap situation right now, they essentially because that spending spree last year. So if they restructure Justin Jefferson, Jonathan Grenard, and Byron Murphy, all things I would do, they would then still have to probably release both Javon Hargrave and Ryan Kelly, who might retire, and that gets them to just over 22 million in space. And after that, you still probably have to do one of cutting Aaron Jones, TJ Hawkinson, or Brian O'Neill to like be in a good spot.
Hmm.
Um, so it's rough. It's rough in the Minnesota situation, and you might have to cut two of those guys if Ryan Kelly doesn't retire or you don't want to restructure all those guys, whatever it is. But I would do everything I could, and I probably would start with that call for Mac Jones just because that would be cheaper and easier. Um, and I would trade the third and the fifth or something. But again, assuming 49ers don't want to do that because I didn't actually end up putting Mac Jones anywhere. Um, I would just swing big and bite the bullet and sign Kirk Cousins.
That's fair. That's fair. And it might be a little bit more expensive than like a Mac Jones, but in the grand scheme of things, it helps develop JJ in a way, where
Mm-hmm.
yes, it's gonna light a fire under him, but it's not another young guy potentially taking his job and trying to become the face of the franchise or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
Kirk knows what he's gonna be there for. It's gonna be to help the young kid, and if he needs to step in and do his job. And I think at the end of the day, Kirk at the very least can do that.
If you take the Vikings and you remember the 2024 Vikings team with Sam Darnold, and then you take last year's Vikings team, which, dude, did you know that they actually finished eighth in the NFC? I had no idea until the last power rankings I did with Josh, and he said it, and I was like, I can't believe it. 8-9 with all of that going on, and but you take that team. Javon Hargrave wasn't good for them this year, so moving on from him is a big deal. If you move on from Ryan Kelly, he's still good, but he only played half the games anyways. But then you have to cut either Aaron Jones or TJ Hawkinson or Brian O'Neill, so another like key offensive player. But you put Kirk Cousins on the team. How many games do you think that team wins? And Brian Flores is still there. Brian Flores is back as DC. So I'm not even touching the defense with those moves, isn't really. Same
Right.
defense. You cut one of those offensive players. You need a new center, but Kirk Cousins is the quarterback. And let's say they're like 1-3 when he takes over in October. Where do you think that team finishes?
I think that they could get to the 7-8 win mark.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a wild card run or anything like that.
Hmm.
I mean, you saw the Browns, and that defense actually, and not to compare the Vikings to the Browns, but
Yeah, that was
a
mean.
great
That was mean.
defense can't really, propel you whenever the offense is struggling as much. And I don't know, man. If you take away more pieces and then you throw Kirk in there and you're like, good luck, dude.
Uh,
You don't got Thielen in his prime no more, but go for it. Have fun.
you don't move on those rollouts the way you did 4 years
Yeah.
ago. Yeah. Yeah. It's still probably not a great place to be in, that's for sure. Um, and then last question on here. So let's say in either of these scenarios, right? Because either way, we're as of now not predicting McCarthy to finish the year as the Vikings quarterback.
Right.
What do you think happens to McCarthy? Like in your scenario, would they trade for Mac Jones to seek the backup for the year? Do they move him? Or is this a situation where, he's on the team all season and then he's off somewhere in 2027? Do you have any hopes for the future? Or is this you trying to get him on the Rams? What's going on here? What do you
No,
think about
no, no,
McCarthy's
sir.
future if neither of us think he's going to finish out the year for Minnesota?
I would say back up throughout this next season and then probably elsewhere the year following. And, maybe Matt goes down for 3 games and he looks good. And, maybe the Vikings can get some compensation for him in return instead of,
Mm,
having to turn him loose or let his contract go through. But, I don't know. And he very well could, turn the corner and KOC could make him look like a mini Sam Darnold, but I just after last year, it didn't look great. He had the surrounding cast. I mean, it was Sam Darnold. It's not like they completely overhauled. They tried to go
right?
all
No.
in for the
Hmm.
kid.
Same group.
So yeah, not completely out on McCarthy, but I'm not in one bit
It,
either.
it would be a tough hill to climb for sure wherever he ended up next, especially as we kind of prefaced, it feels like there are less places to go, and the only places you want to go, or the only places you could go, aren't necessarily desirable situations.
No.
All right, where are we going after the NFC North here?
Let's go to the NFC West, knock out the rest of the NFC.
All right, I like it. So I have three locks here. I have Brock Purdy, Sam Darnold, Matthew Stafford. How how,
Yes,
how do you
sir.
feel about those locks?
I I don't know if I can ever say Stafford is a lock, after the past couple of years, but the report came out today, I think it was from Schefter, that McVay came out and said that, fingers are crossed that
Hmm.
Stafford comes back. I think he's speaking for maybe the entire league after this year because
Yeah,
Stafford put on
100%.
a heck of a show. I mean, he obviously, I mean, MVP conversation, he might win the whole dang thing. So obviously hopeful that he comes back, but that back was a whole situation leading up to the season. Let's see, I guess, how he's feeling. There hasn't been a report that he's, getting surgery or anything, so that's
Right.
good.
Hmm.
But time will tell. I've got Stafford down as a lock as well, though.
I had written in here for the yearly check-in, is Stafford retiring or not? Good to hear you don't think so. I don't think so either, man. I think he was playing too well. And that's indicative of, I think, the body was doing just as well as it needed to. That back thing didn't flare up at some point during the season where he missed a game or was questionable or anything. Just keep that airstream right outside the arena for training camp. We'll be good to go. So let's get to the Arizona Cardinals then, because I don't have a lock here.
No,
Do
sir.
you don't have a lock either? Okay. Um, do you want to go first on the Cardinals? You want me to go first?
You go first.
All
You
right.
go first
I
on
made
this
you
one
I made
because
you go first last one. Um, this is where I have Tua Tagovailoa going.
really,
Really?
I do too.
No way.
I do.
Heck
I
yeah. Dude,
do.
we do this with the Cardinals every year. We said
I know.
we had a weird one, like three. It was Darnold. We had Baker and Darnold, I think both go or both either both going to the Cardinals or one starting. We did something weird with those. It might have been, I think we both said Baker actually. I think we both said Baker to the Cardinals with the year
Yeah,
he ended up going to the Bucks. Um, the
that's
Cardinals,
awesome.
man. The Cardinals are just irrelevant enough to do something as dumb as either of those moves. And here we are with Tua going to the Cardinals, and so this is what I was kind of highlighting with with LaFleur, and I said Matt earlier, Mike LaFleur becoming the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. I liked the idea of Tua already. I already had him here, but I think this is the right coaching tree for him to work for. Obviously, like when Mike McDaniel and he were at their best, he was putting up crazy numbers, and the offense worked. Um, if this is going to be a timing and rhythm offense, that's exactly what Tua does and what Tua is usually really, really good at. And I still think with enough talent around him, Tua can be a good enough quarterback to give you that good offense. And he'd be in Arizona, so like easy weather to play in. You don't have to worry about that. The Cardinals have a better offensive line than the Dolphins, and they've shown more interest in keeping that strong than Miami did while Tua was there, even with that old regime. And they have nice big targets that he could throw to, including the league's best tight end and Trey McBride. So I think it'd be a good enough situation. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say Tua's a top 10 quarterback just like lurking in the shadows waiting for a good situation. No. But I think if anybody is going to make a move for him, it'd be the Cardinals because they also are in a good cap situation, especially if when in this scenario, if they get to trade Kyler and from the draft pick scenario, neither quarterback is going to take a lot of picks to acquire for or send out for. Um, Both teams should be motivated to move these guys before June 1st, like at the trade or before the draft, because that's going to reap them the maximum cap benefits to do so, which means nobody's going to send a lot of picks. You know, the nobody's going to trade a first for Kyler or a second for Tua and then have to take on all their money. If you want to make these trades happen, you have to take pennies on the dollar. So I would expect the Cardinals to be able to get like I think I put like a fourth round pick for Kyler.
Oof.
May, you think that's high? Maybe that's high. So let's
No, no, I'm
you think that's
I'm
low?
thinking that's well, I think you're right, but just the concept of Kyler Murray
I
going for
know,
a fourth is just
I know,
like,
I
man,
know.
I'd do that in a heartbeat if I were one
I
of
know.
these
And
QB
really, and that
teams.
probably is too low because it really, and we'll talk about him later, but he really only has 1 year you're really paying for him. So if you're a team with cap space and you can just plug Kyler Murray in, like it's not a bad situation. So, but either way, so let's say a fourth at worst, right? Let's say a fourth at worst. But then Tua, is probably like, I wrote here like a day three, sixth round for seventh round swap kind of thing. Like that's how bad that contract is and how bad
Yeah.
he played. Because at least the Cardinals, when they go into trade negotiations for Kyler, can say, "Oh, well, he just got hurt. He just got hurt. That's why he wasn't playing at the end of the year." Miami benched Tua, so like they have no room to stand on. So if you're the Cardinals, you can say, "Okay, if I can get a fourth for Kyler and then essentially trade a seventh for Tua, move up 3 rounds, but I have to eat one more year of a big quarterback contract to see how it goes." Okay, sounds good. Because the thing Kyler is good at, which makes him a quarterback I'd rather have than Tua, aren't even things that would be better in a McVay, Shanahan, LaFleur system. So Tua is already going to be a better stylistic fit. So those are the main reasons I have Tua. Let me see if I wrote anything else. It's obviously not a great situation to be in, but when you're at the third overall pick in this year's draft, you're missing out on a quarterback situation. You don't have a good enough team to really make a huge splash at trading for one. But that's why I went with Tua. So you also have Tua. What led you to that decision?
I do, and it was the LaFleur situation and bringing
Hmm.
him in. He wasn't before that got reported. He wasn't who I had down. But I
Oh, okay.
think the it just makes a lot of sense. Like, yeah, I don't want to echo everything you just said, but Tua makes a lot of sense in that Shanahan McVay style offense, and
Mm,
he can be the point guard that just distributes and does what's needed. And I think that's exactly what LaFleur is going to be asking his quarterbacks to do, unless he ends up with some sick prototype Josh Allen type of quarterback. It's going to be a point guard, point and shoot type of offense. And this is one spot where I think one of these rookies could at least fight for a spot because let's
hmm
say the Cardinals do trade, pennies for the dollar for Tua.
hmm
I don't think that closes the door for them to go out and on
No.
day two get a quarterback that they might like. So I did have, this was just for me to get my like pre-draft hot take off.
Heck yeah.
But Garrett Nussmeier being QB2, and I had him here competing with Tua
Okay.
for that starting gig where, it might split the locker room, to be honest, is kind of like my biggest
Hmm.
drawback there, where you can make a viable case for either guy. So that might be a drawback, but it was my only way to get that take off. So
So
Nussmeier
that
QB2, give me that.
I have a Nussmeier mentioned in here somewhere, but man, a quarterback room of Tua and Nussmeier could not be more anti what Simon is looking for in a quarterback. So that's gross, but that makes a lot of
It's the
sense.
Cardinals.
And it's the Cardinals, so it's perfect. Yeah, 100%. That's pretty much a prerequisite. Um, so yeah, if you did the Kyler thing, I mean, and here's the thing with Tua in 2027, you would save money by cutting him after 2026. It's not a lot. Your dead cap is still higher than the cap savings would be, but the Broncos just went to the AFC title game with Russell Wilson still on their books as a dead cap. I
That's
don't
so
think teams are
true.
as worried about the dead cap anymore, especially like for my math, it's like if you're saving anything, the dead cap is worth it because it's going to help, it's quote unquote more embarrassing. That's the only reason for people not to do it. But what's more embarrassing? Winning 4 games, right? Or what's more embarrassing? Like having a bad quarterback play for 15 weeks because his dead cap would be bad because he's that bad. Then just don't play him anyways. We're not looking at your cap sheet as often as we're looking at the football field. So just eat it, man. If Nussmeier is better, then do it. But I'll get to Nussmeier. And for fans or anybody watching that are like, are we what are we doing? Like, let's just let Jacoby Brissett play if we have to trade for Tua and pay Tua Tagovailoa. The Cardinals didn't win a game with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, so like Tua won a couple games. Like maybe we could make something work here. That's funny that we're both in on Tua there. All right. We wrapped up the NFC, right? That's the whole NFC. So where do you
Yes,
want to start in
sir.
the AFC? What's our first team there?
I think it's only fitting that we go straight into the AFC North.
You see
I've
this
been
like
looking forward to
looming
this. Yeah,
shadow over my terrible
I
towel this
do.
week. Yeah, that's because this is the first. Actually, no, this is the second pod since the Mike McCarthy news. It's actually just because my lighting's bad, but whatever. I have 2 locks for the AFC North. Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. Do you also have 2 locks?
I do, but gosh, even then, those are two dudes who are pissed off. So, I mean,
Did you
with
really consider moving either of them this time?
uh consider, yes, but I just don't think the timing's right on any of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just don't think any of these teams are truly prepared to take as big a swing as, going for one of these guys. I think the only team that would, make sense is, not being biased, but the Rams, just with two
Hmm.
firsts, kind of a locked and ready to go
Yeah, if Stafford retired
roster.
and but everybody else is there and all your
Yeah.
Shula's still there and Shula's gonna get OC, like you would just think like this should be the most all-in team ready to go. Yeah, no doubt. Um, sure, Ravens trade Lamar Jackson. Been begging for it for years. Uh, and they got my man Declan Doyle too. God, I hate the Ravens. Screw the Ravens. All right, are we starting Steelers or Browns?
Let's go Browns.
Okay. Um, who do you have for the Browns? Who's your week 1 starter for the Cleveland Browns?
This might be a lazy pick, man, but with just the state of the Browns and how bad the head coach situation was and the Jim Schwartz situation right now, I just don't see a lot of continuity in this whole regime already.
Hmm.
This kind of seems like a 1 year rental type of deal for Monken, unfortunately, and hopefully I'm wrong. He's worked his entire career to get to this point, but I have Shador down
Hmm.
just because I don't think that they can add anybody else into the locker room given how much they've spent, financially with Deshaun, how much they've spent, draft capital wise with Gabriel and Shador. I think you have to try and figure it out in-house because this year was a circus, but that was a different regime, right? So you got to
Yeah.
figure out what's going on in the QB room. If Deshaun can play, morally the fan in me, I don't want to see him play. Will they potentially roll him out if he's capable and the best option? Potentially. But I think Shador showed enough to where, I think you can see him being the guy potentially moving forward. Gabriel, not so much. Um, but yeah, I mean, Pro Bowler Shador Sanders, right?
I was
I
waiting for it.
mean,
If you didn't say it, I was. Oh my gosh.
my biggest, not definitely not my biggest question, but one of my many questions about Shador and the Browns quarterback in general is Shador's relationship with Todd Monken. Because let me know if I'm wrong, but Shador didn't want to go to Baltimore to back up Lamar, and I
Right?
wonder
Mm-hmm.
if Todd Monken felt some type of way
Mm-hmm.
with that, reaction from Shador, and if that's going to cause, some, already predetermined, conflict in that locker room before the season
Mm-hmm.
even starts.
Yeah, I wonder, I think back to coming out of the combine and the rumors. I want to be clear that they're rumors. Nobody puts
Right,
their name on it, right? But the
right.
rumors were like he went into certain interviews and not just like honest, like, hey, I'd rather go somewhere I want to start, but like bad in the interviews, like lazy and disinterested and all this stuff. I always read the Baltimore thing as I want to go somewhere where I can compete. It wasn't I'm unwilling to be a backup. I always read the Shadur thing. I felt like while I was never in full support of trying to make him a franchise quarterback, I
Hmm.
tended to look more on the positive side. So maybe that's what I was like. But yeah, like I wonder if Monken was to that point. I wonder if he was in those interviews and if he felt some kind of way about. That said, I know there's only 32 jobs, and Monken, it's a lot older than the guys that were pulling out from the Browns jobs, and we're like, I'll just wait for another one next year. I think if you are taking that job, you at least feel somewhat decent about it. And there was the photos about from of them together when Monken first got there, and I wonder if that was like a was going to get you one way or another or something like that. I'm sure that'll be fine, but that is a really really good point. Um, so I kind of have Shadur as well, but I do think this is going to be our one like true camp battle this year with whoever it ends up being. It's not Dylan Gabriel, by the way. I don't have Dylan Gabriel factored in here. This is where I have the Browns taking a swing on Garrett Nussmeier.
Okay.
I think they end up taking the third quarterback off the board, or potentially second quarterback off the board based on the Senior Bowl. We'll see. Um, but I also figure that this is a team that needs to make some sort of cheap financial swing as well, right? Because the Browns are in a really bad cap situation as well, with even less wiggle room than a team like the Vikings. We're talking about best case scenario from a cap perspective is cut David Njoku, which seems like it's happening, and then restructure Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward, who is a 32-year-old cornerback, by the way, and they can still only get like a mid-tier level sort of free agent at best. Um, so I'd like to see a version of what they did last year, right? Where they had a bunch of quarterbacks all in the building and they're just all throwing. We're seeing who comes out. But I want it to all be young guys. I have Shadur Sanders, I have Garrett Nussmeier, and I have Zach Wilson.
Okay.
I'll say Zach they look at Zach Wilson as a former first round pick, getting a second chance for cheap, plus a draft pick in Nussmeier. Um, they watch Baker go and kind of do this and have a resurgence. And I could see them kind of saying like, well, that's a smart, cheap way to do this. I think Wilson was like I think he signed a 1 year for $6 million for the Dolphins last year, and then he didn't even play. So like you could probably get him for less than that. Um, and you just see what Monken can do. You see what happens. And then from a draft pick perspective, like the Jets, the Browns have multiple picks to work with. So as of now, it seems like quarterbacks 2 and 3 are Simpson and Nussmeier in that order. Um, and I think spoiler alert for the Jets, they're going to be involved in that too, right? If
Hmm.
Mendoza's going to go one to the Raiders, spoiler alert, I can see between the Jets and the Browns, the Jets have picks 16, 33, and 44, and Cleveland has picked 24 and pick 39. I think two of those five picks are Simpson and Nussmeier at some point in some order. So one of those guys compete with Shadur, compete with someone like a Zach Wilson, or maybe like a Trey Lance if you want to go another way. But one of these young guys that are straight up free agents, you continue to build through the draft and draft your own guys. Um, and because you're not in a good cap situation anyway, so you don't want to trade a pick to also then have to spend money on a bigger name guy. Um, I could see, for this team that doesn't have a lot going for it, let's drum up some excitement, some confidence by letting these young guys kind of battle it out, come to camp and see who's hungry for it, sort of deal.
I could easily see a late August, Adam Schefter tweet that Zach Wilson has won the QB competition after wowing coaches in Cleveland. Like that just, I can already see it. That makes a heck of a lot of sense.
And Zach Wilson, Cleveland Browns quarterback, just makes a lot of sense on its own. So,
Absolutely. He's
all
gonna
right,
look great in the jersey.
should we get to my stupid team?
Yeah, let's get to your stupid team.
All right. I have my stupid team trading for Kyler Murray. This is where I have Kyler going.
Interesting. Okay. Okay.
Um,
Can I ask you a question?
yes,
And
please
I'm
do.
sure you were already going to get to it, but I want to know how you think he would fit with McCarthy. Like, do
I
you
have
think
no
that that's
idea.
a compatible?
I have no clue. I have
Okay,
no clue.
that was
Um,
my biggest drawback. That's who I originally had down,
let's
but
see.
I was trying to imagine Aaron Rodgers and Dak Prescott, and then Kyler Murray, and but I think in terms of the suitor wise, the Steelers make absolutely the most sense.
Because here's my thing for the Steelers and why this should be the move this year of all years because they've been linked to Kyler in linked, people want to see Kyler in Pittsburgh. Um, it's time to put your money where your mouth is. To Mike McCarthy, to Omar Khan, to Art Rooney II. If Mike McCarthy is here for a good time, not a long time, and to get the quarterback up and running for Pittsburgh's future, like set up, figure out who the next franchise quarterback is, get him developed, and put him in place to succeed for a long time, then it's time to take a swing, and it's time to take a big swing for someone like Kyler Murray. Sure, you can maybe draft Ty Simpson or Garrett Nussmeier, who I just talked about, with that 20th pick, because that's worked out for them in the past, or a late round guy like a Drew Aller, a guy from that's been in the state, because that's worked out in the past. Um, or do they have a better chance with Will Howard? Or is that because McCarthy says he likes Howard, and I thought Howard going in the sixth round was crazy. I thought he was like a day three or third round guy. Um, so like I think that's about the same odds of working out as any of those draft pick guys. So instead, use that day two pick, and instead of getting a 30-70 split on if it's going to work or not, get a guy who is talented enough to be a number one overall pick, and say, all right, McCarthy, we gave you this job because you said you would get you developed Joe Montana. You developed Rich Gannon. You developed Dak Prescott and Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre and revived all the careers, and you had time to put up or shut up. The Steelers have plenty of cap space. Once, depending on what they do with Jalen Ramsey, but especially, after cutting John Smith, who's going to be suing the NCAA for college eligibility so he can play for Arthur Smith at Ohio State, they'll have over 50 million in cap space. Kyler has 3 years on his deal, but really only 2026 is guaranteed. You can get a ton of cap space savings, like more cap savings than the dead cap. That conversation I had earlier, even from moving on for Kyle. So this is essentially a 1 year rental, or it can be up to 3 years of okay, if this is going to be the guy, and then he's in his 30s, you give him the extension if he's good in that time, and then you kick McCarthy to the curb. Um, because hey, if it's a disaster during the season, you can turn the keys over to Howard, kind of like we talked about with Tua, or any of those draft picks if you want, and then you can move on from him. But I'm not so interested in this year in this draft class where the Steelers picks are slated to be saying, okay, McCarthy, you're a developer. Let's draft a guy late and see what you do. Especially if doing that just means there's still like a 50-50 chance Aaron Rodgers comes back. Because then that guy's just going to be sitting again, anyways. And you're not doing what, if you're a quarterback developer, you can get these guys late in their careers, even. Go get Kyler Murray. Go get the guy that was the number one overall pick. And at one point in his career, looked like he was knocking on the door of being a top 10 guy. Um, like stylistically, West Coast offense, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, probably not, but like get them there. Get them
Right.
that this is coaching. This is what you're supposed to do. Make it happen. So this is probably my like least confident true prediction. Again, we need so many changes, however many it's going to be. Um, And this is my call to action for Mike McCarthy and the Steelers. If you really believe this guy's going to do it, go take the biggest swing out there.
I love it. I love it. And honestly, I think that's my dream scenario for the Steelers, even though, it might not stylistically be a perfect match. I just think with where the Steelers are roster-wise, I think you can plug them in there. And at the very least, you're contending for the AFC North. And I think at the end of the day, that's all Steelers fans can ask for. Now, like I said, that was my dream scenario for the Steelers. I have down, unfortunately, my I would I don't want to say nightmare, but damn, is it looking like it's kind of heading towards that direction. I've got Aaron Rodgers and Will Howard.
Yeah.
I don't I don't like it, and I hope I'm wrong, but just in terms of predictions, man, it's just McCarthy wants it to happen. You haven't heard a peep from Rodgers, which, usually what 2 years ago you'd be hearing Rodgers is thinking that he's gonna have
You'd be on
fajitas for
McAfee by
lunch
now.
today. Yeah, like you would know exactly what Rodgers is thinking. That makes me think that he's probably going to be coming back one last run with his pal and quote unquote, well, not quote unquote, it's unfinished business, and maybe he can turn back the clock because it's not like he looked abysmal. He definitely wasn't the Rodgers of old by any means, but I think in terms of serviceable starting quarterback, he was definitely there. I kind of like Will Howard though. I would like to see. I don't want to in this scenario, right? Rodgers would have to get hurt or, play pretty poorly for Howard to get in. I would like to see him get a true crack at it though and see what he's made of because I completely agree. I was surprised with how far he fell in the draft. I was expecting him to be a late day two, early day three type of quarterback.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's just not how it panned out for him. I do think it's in there somewhere in him, and maybe McCarthy can be the guy to pull it out and make him look like a true starting quarterback in the NFL.
And again, like if that's part of the route, if that's part of the thinking, do that, right? Don't do the half measure of well also bring in Aaron Rodgers because then yeah, what is Will Howard getting? Like maybe Howard is, maybe you're bumping him up to be the true backup and he's getting more reps in training camp. He didn't even get to play preseason last year. So like maybe these are all just steps. But again, this the team is older, the coach is older. The coach is older than the old coach, man. It's nuts. Um I'm so mad. Uh the guy was a quarterback at Ohio State. He spent the whole year in the quarterback room with Aaron Rodgers. Like just if you're gonna do that, do that. And then I would do the like I wouldn't do the Nussmeier or Simpson. I wouldn't use my second round pick on, but I would do the day three pick on Drew Aller and just put
Oh
those
yeah.
two tall guys in there. Just like see, not even see what happens. Aller wouldn't win that competition, but um, if you're gonna not take the swing, like go just strip it down all the way and go all the way young at that point. Um, I do want to have an Anthony Richardson conversation in a little bit. We'll get there, but I that one's complicated. That one's complicated. I mean, man, I want one of these swings to happen if it's going to happen. Especially if we're going to talk the talk of quarterback developer, then go get a guy that needs to be developed. Don't just take kind of the high do what you always been doing with the high floor low ceiling sort of move. Um, Steelers. I'm out. If I have to watch Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy for the Steelers in 2026, man, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Let's get to the next division here. Where do you want to hit next?
Let's go to the AFC South. Probably going to be a pretty quick one.
Okay, well, I mean, we will have the Anthony Richardson conversation to an extent here. So AFC South, I have three locks. I have the Texans with Stroud, the Jags with Lawrence, and the Titans with Cam Ward.
Yep.
All right, do you have a fourth lock?
Yeah.
Okay, who's your lock for the Colts?
Daniel Jones.
Okay, okay. So again, this
Well,
was my
and
like
that's
flub for the
yeah.
injury.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Daniel Jones is the guy. Daniel Jones
He's the
is their
guy again,
quarterback for
yeah.
2026. I'm using the literal as I can definition of the exercise of saying week one just to create some drama here. But yeah, Daniel Jones is the guy. They want him back even with the injury. Chris Ballard was trying to hold his cards close to the vest in his postseason press conference about like we want him back and there's mutual interest and but it's a good agent, but the injury is a whatever. They're gonna work it out. They're gonna find a way. So Daniel Jones is gonna be the guy. Um, what do you think ultimately ends up happening? Because they're saying, and Daniel Jones is saying, like he wants to be ready for training camp, like let alone week one. Like he wants to be in training camp doing stuff. Let's just project the optimistic approach, which everybody should do, and say Daniel Jones is going to miss the month of September.
Right.
Who do you think is taking snaps for the first 4 weeks of the season for the Indianapolis Colts?
I think contract wise, I'm not 100% sure if he's going to be a free agent or if they could get some sort of deal done here. But I think that's a team like Jacoby Brissett could potentially land
Hmm.
on for the
Okay.
first month of the season. Maybe you see another glimpse of Jameis, maybe one last run,
Mm-hmm.
something along the lines of that. I wouldn't. I don't know if I'd bring in somebody that would, maybe test the waters, but
Hmm.
maybe, I mean, having a better quarterback never hurt nobody. So, I mean, if you
Yep.
can bring a guy in that's going to play better than Jones, then why not do that? So,
Hmm.
I Jones played well enough this year where I don't want to get his job stolen,
Right.
but at the
Right.
same time, I don't think he played, completely out of his mind. I think it was a
Hmm.
lot of play calling,
Yep.
surrounding staff. So yeah, maybe like a Brissett, someone in that category.
Hmm.
Jameis.
Hmm.
Uh, what do you
We
think?
we always got to get a Jameis mention. I tried to get Jameis on the Jets last year. We always got to try to work Jameis in for a little bit.
Have to.
Um, so if they went the veteran route, try to get a veteran in because when Daniel Jones got hurt last year, obviously Anthony Richardson was already hurt. They did turn to Riley Leonard. Did Leonard literally get hurt in the same game Jones got hurt in?
I think so.
Wild. So then they obviously needed to do something and they stuck with Philip Rivers the rest of the season. But they are up against the cap a little bit, so I'll just mention that. But they should be able to re-sign Jones and Alec Pierce, especially if they go ahead and extend Michael Pittman. I know some Colts fans are like, cut Pittman so you can keep Pierce, but they'd actually be in better shape if they just extend Pittman because that'll lower his cap hit for the year. And then depending on what else you do, you probably will have enough to do something in that like Jacoby Brissett realm. I don't know if they do a Mac Jones thing because they obviously are out first round picks this year and next year. So if you're in that kind of cap deficit, do you want to trade even more when you're also going to pay a quarterback who's coming off an Achilles? That's probably even for quarterback, probably more investment for what you have capital sitting on than you want to put in. So I kind of came down to it's probably going to be Riley Leonard for a couple weeks if they're this confident, if I'm predicting and I'm reading the tea leaves, they want Jones back. Everyone's very confident he's going to be back ready early. Now they admitted like he's probably not going to look as good as he did last year right away. He'll have to work to it. But it also just seems like Anthony Richardson is like done. Like everyone's like
Yeah.
just sure that he's just going to be traded. Um, so I guess my question is here for you. Do you expect Richardson to be traded? Do you expect him to be there and at least kind of like compete with Leonard for the job for a few weeks? Um, and if he is traded, like what are kind of your expectations?
I think Richardson is a situation where he just needs a fresh start, just a clean break. And he might be a guy that would be fun on a team like Arizona, right?
Hmm.
Where, they don't have a whole lot going on in that QB room, if they get rid of Kyler. And I don't necessarily see them going rookie quarterback, maybe with that second round pick,
Hmm.
like we mentioned. But yeah, I don't. Miami, we'll get to them in a little bit,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
it's kind of few and far between where, there's an offensive minded coach that will actually really be able to help
Yeah.
develop Richardson because ultimately I think that's exactly what he needs. I mean, honestly, I think if the Rams are nervous about Stafford's health, I think if you can get him cheap, that would be a heck of an option. And because you see KOC get, Sam Darnold and Daniel
Hmm.
Jones and Shanahan's got Mac Jones and when is McVay gonna get this backup quarterback that goes and gets $1 billion? Like needs that under his belt too.
It's just not as good a coach as it. No.
Oh no, you're gonna get me all fired up now.
Listen, Anthony Richardson, I have no idea what's going to happen because I went into this exercise just being like, okay, Richardson and Leonard will just battle it out for the couple weeks kind of thing. But
Mhm.
then whether I was reading Colts fan blogs, Colts Twitter, or like actual Colts media members, they're all just like, yeah, Richardson's going to get traded. And when they did the press conference and they were talking about all the quarterbacks and they're like, all right, Daniel Jones, we love Daniel Jones, mutual interest. He's going to be ready week one. He's a maniac. We believe in him. He's our guy. Riley Leonard, hey, we really like Riley Leonard. The moment was too big for him. We thought he went in there and was going to be good and yada, yada. Anthony Richardson sucks about his eye. We'll see if he can, we'll see what he can do. They're just done. They're over it. Which is such a bummer. You know how I feel about Anthony Richardson.
Yeah,
So yeah, but my mind was spinning too. Like there's not a good, not only is there not a good situation for him to go into this year, there's not one that even makes sense for him to go into in terms of like I would feel good about he would actually get better. Now maybe the Rams are that team, right?
right,
But and from a financial and package trade package standpoint, the I guess the most likely thing is someone sends like let's say if my scale is Kyler's a fourth round pick, let's say Anthony Richardson gets like a fifth round pick,
right,
and they he essentially gets a year long tryout on what will be the last year of his rookie deal. Because this is going into 23, 24, 25, but his last year would be 2026. So let's say he goes in somewhere right now for 2026 and he's the backup all year. He just sits and he soaks everything in. He gets us whatever reps he can. And then 2027, he plays and it's a year long tryout. A team trading for him could even pick up his fifth year option for 2027. That's what happened with Sam Darnold when the Jets trade him to the Panthers. Because but that would have to be before the draft, essentially, because May 1st is going to be the deadline to do that. So the team trading for Richardson, I believe, still, unless that rule has changed since Darnold, they could pick up his fifth year option. So I mean, yeah, the Rams would be interesting from that standpoint. You just let him sit, and whether you pick up the fifth year option or not, you know he's not in a position where he's going to have to play ever unless you really wanted him to at some point. But yeah, it certainly seems like he is done. You know, I would take him in Pittsburgh again. Mike McCarthy, prove it, man, prove it. He would also be cheaper than
true.
Kyler. So um, at this point, do you have more faith in Anthony Richardson or JJ McCarthy having a career resurgence?
Oh, that is a good question.
And let's just assume both went to like league average team situation. Like not a not Shanahan, not McVay, but
Right.
not the Browns. And
Honestly,
let's league average situation.
I would say Richardson because I think McCarthy needs to be on one of those, super high IQ,
Hmm.
the
Yep.
KOC, the show we've been
Yep.
talking about it all
Yep.
episode. I really
The
think
coach he has
that's
right now.
yeah, yeah. He's got to play that point guard role because if he can't do too much, he's not gonna, go out there and win the game for you. He'll go out there and
Hmm.
help you win the game, but and obviously there will be plays, he might have touchdown at the end of the game, but you can't rely on it. He's not a Caleb Williams. He's not, one of these upper echelon, arm talents.
Hmm. It'd be interesting who LaFleur in Arizona kind of brings over as an OC. Um, but I wonder if he can snag or Clay Kubiak before he goes to Seattle after his brother gets hired by the Raiders. But that I kind of like what you talked because you said Brissett to the Colts. Could they just swap? They just trade Brissett for Anthony Richardson and
That
and,
would
and
be
they just call it a
fun.
done deal, or
I
Anthony
like that.
Richardson and third for Mac Jones, and he does the Sam Darnold
Ooh.
thing where he takes a year under Shanahan and then goes off somewhere.
Don't let him get a Shanahan offense. Oh my God. Then you're just gonna have a monster.
If he
Then
could
you're gonna
literally
have
be the
Brock
next
Purdy
Darnold.
getting dealt for a two. You got this
Oh man,
alien who can
you're
hit every
you're
pass and jump over every human.
you're speaking my language right now. All right, so Anthony Richardson, you're going to the NFC West. Congratulations. Could either go really bad or really, really good, depending on which of the four teams you go to. All right, Ronan, we have what, two divisions left? Where are we
Yes,
going?
sir. Let's go AFC West.
Okay. I have again via cheating, I have two locks here, and that's Bo Nix and Justin Herbert.
Oh, yeah, of course. I was like, two? What we?
Yeah, cheating.
Yes,
100%
yes.
cheating. Um, I assume you just have Patrick Mahomes locked in as the guy for Kansas City.
Right.
Um, the Chiefs, I think, do need to make a good investment at backup for 2026 though,
Agreed.
because with Mahomes coming back from the knee injury, and this could be Gardner Minshew just comes back. He was just on the team last year, and he had a good prognosis of his knee injury that happened at the end of the season. Um, but the Chiefs haven't had the same backup on the roster since the legendary Chad Henne run from 2020 to 2022. But they could go back to a familiar face, and I mentioned Carson Wentz. I think Wentz could come back to Kansas City this year. He didn't play particularly well for Minnesota, but I think he earned a lot of respect for the way he kind of gutted that out and like led the team even more than how he actually played, just the way he led the team and they all rallied around him kind of for the season, especially going through the injury. Um, he was there just 2 years ago, so it wasn't like a completely different situation than where the Chiefs are right now. So I could see Wentz coming in sort of in that Joe Flacco mold or like whatever Riley Leonard's going to do. So like and I'm a little more confident Mahomes will be back a little earlier, but hey, we need you to be the guy that the start of training camp can take the first team reps and at if it comes to that and go through the first 2 3 weeks of the season so we don't have to rush our guy back. And I think once with Andy Reid, if he goes through the whole summer of doing it for real, could give 2 3 4 solid weeks and keep the team afloat until Mahomes is ready to go.
100%. I think it makes complete sense. I mean, he's already been there before. He's good enough to, where if things are going right, then he doesn't look so bad, yeah, after all. But man, it's whenever two sprains comes out or, he's over there getting demolished. That's whenever problems start to rise. That dude is tough as nails for sure.
All right. So did you consider the Raiders and Fernando Mendoza a lock, or did you play with it a little bit here?
I think it's a lock. I think it makes way too much sense with Kubiak coming in and the cast that they have for him to step in there. And I think you can definitely revamp that offensive line. I think you can definitely bring in a wide receiver one. But I think those are possible things, with free agency. They have some picks to play with in terms of trading them, in terms of spending the capital on these positions of need. There's definitely a lot of work to be done on the Raiders, but
Mhm.
I think that they can hit just about as good of a home run as they could with the head coaching hire. Um, and I think Mendoza and Darnold. I don't think it's a one for one by any means, but
Mhm.
I think you can find things in their games that are similar. Um, but yeah, I think the Raiders desperately need an infusion of youth at quarterback, and Mendoza, man, he might not be your prototypical quarterback one. He's definitely not your prototypical number one overall pick, but he's gritty. He's obviously very smart. He makes the right decision, and I think he fits this potential Raiders offense really well.
I also ultimately have Mendoza going here as well. I've been, if you're a listener, you've seen and heard the draft stuff with Ben, and we've talked plenty about him. Think he totally clears the bar of first overall pick quarterback. So we'll just see what the ceiling truly is. But I do have two avenues I want to take. This one will be a little bit shorter. So let's first start with, do you think that with this now being a one quarterback draft, the Raiders should consider a Chicago Bears, Carolina Panthers 2023-esque offer of trading the first overall pick and punting on quarterback for a year? If I mean, look, listen to some of the. I mean, we gave Tua to the Cardinals, right? Like the
Yeah.
Minnesota one, all the stuff about Minnesota is recycling about how they wanted to trade up for Drake May all those, a couple of years ago. I almost said all those years ago, a couple of years ago. If the Browns wanted to package those two first round picks, if the Jets wanted to package a bunch of the picks they had, should they listen and strong arm teams into should they take three first round picks from the Jets for Mendoza and punt on quarterback for a year, or do you think when you have a guy that you feel this good about, you just don't deviate from that?
Lazily, funny enough, I think it's about how much your scouting department like Dante Moore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
if you had him as your quarterback one, then
Yeah.
I think you go ahead and take that King's ransom,
Yeah.
and because you might get him at a discounted price as quarterback three or four
Yeah.
next year, and
Mm-hmm.
I think you take it. But if you had him, behind Mendoza, then I think you have to, follow protocol, and you need quarterback. You're set up like if if you flub it, let's say you trade down and then you go next year and the guy doesn't work out
Mm-hmm.
and Mendoza, is this all pro or,
Yeah. You
takes
don't
his
want to be
team
the
to the
team that
playoffs
traded
that first or
Mendoza.
second
Mm-hmm.
year. Yeah, yeah. I mean, then you're all fired, you
Yeah.
know? It's cutthroat, man.
A
It's
100%.
cutthroat. But if you liked more than Mendoza, then yeah, yeah, I'd take it
That's a
100%.
that's a real I hadn't even thought about it from that aspect of if they liked more already more than Mendoza. Not only does that mean, hey, we could just get more next year, so let's do it in that aspect, but also just we weren't totally sold on Mendoza number one overall, so we don't want to be cornered into it if we didn't fully believe it. Um, you have to do the draft day, like we have this amount of time till the draft, and we have the first overall pick, so let's scatter and get everything we have on Bo Callahan sort of deal. Um,
Yep.
but that, yeah, that makes a lot of ultimately, yes, I think they should just sit and do it. But man, if the Jets offered, because the
Yeah.
Jets have like 4 or 5 first round picks over the next 2 seasons. I think five. I think
It'd be
literally 5 picks.
enticing.
So it'd be hard to say no. All right. But my other avenue we needed to go down, talk about people who have been running their mouths that need to talk the talk. Tom Brady. You've been saying all this stuff about quarterback development. We just throw these guys out there. We give them playbooks, not play or skills or whatever he says, um, they're going to need a veteran week one starter because according to Brady, these rookies aren't ready to start right now. So are they just going to give Fernando Mendoza the keys week one and Brady's going to have some whatever mishgosh about like, oh yeah, no, Mendoza's different. Like he's ready for this. He's ready now. Signetti had him. He's a fifth, 5 4 year player, whatever it is. Or are they going to do what people should do and bring in a veteran to start for however many games. Is it the Drake May 5 games? Is it a season? Is it the Jordan Love 3 seasons? Whatever it is, do you think they should be going out and getting a veteran guy to not only compete and like be there in case Mendoza was not ready, but like start? Or do you think Mendoza is going to be the week one starter, the guy?
Gosh, if it were me personally, gosh, I don't know what I would do in that situation. In terms of prediction, I think they'll probably start him.
Hmm.
I think he'll be week one starter just because it's Vegas. They want to fill seats. I
Got a new
think at the end of the day,
stadium. They gotta
yeah,
pay all
you
these
can't.
coaches that they're paying right now.
You got all these people coming out week one for, let's say they host week one. You got all these people coming into the stadium and you're not going to start the number one overall pick. Like
Yeah.
I think they're going to try to start hot, and I think they'll roll Mendoza out. As far as what I think they should do, I think it would be beneficial to bench him, but I don't think it's going to necessarily make or break his career, or make or break the season.
Hmm.
He might find his footing easier, but on the flip, he might just have that week one struggle game in week six whenever he gets that first start. So honestly, I'd probably just roll him out because he's the type of quarterback where I don't think he's going to get too down on himself with those mistakes.
Hmm.
But shoot, time will tell.
Because I did put, if they're going to talk the talk, I did put Marcus Mariota here too. Mariota still
Okay, yeah.
32, played well for the Commanders last year. Um, has the mobility that a Kubiak system would want because this is where I thought about Kirk Cousins as a guy that could legitimately start week one
Mm,
and start up to a full year if you really wanted to go crazy. Um, he like intellectually and schematically would work with that system. Um, and he's the most talented player that would be available to do this, but he just does not have the mobility anymore. And this offense calls for that. And Tom Brady, I do think, is a high enough IQ person to know that you can't be a statue back there anymore. It's just not feasible. Um, so
right.
Mariota, I think, is that right combination of like 32, so like veteran, but not so old that he's not going to be able to move around, not so old that like, hey, his body's only going to hold up for like a couple weeks. I think you could get through a season of Mariota if you really wanted to. And I think he's the kind of person that like the team would kind of gravitate towards and center around. I don't remember if there was a bad breakup between him and the Raiders, but before when he was there. But I think that's something that, again, if Brady's going to do what he's been preaching, then it's a move that I think would make most sense. I thought about Cousins, I thought about Flacco, but again, those guys just can't move. But ultimately, yeah, it's Mendoza's going to be the pick. He's going to start at some point. It could even just be like once the team's eliminated from the playoffs, whatever it ends up being. To your point, like Drake May had his first start in week 6 against the Texans was his first ever start. So even though he didn't start right away, it's not like they found a cushiony opponent for him to go against. But I don't think it's so much about like starting him off easy and making sure everything's perfect, but just like make sure he's ready. You don't want to be in a position where you have to start in week 1 and you're sitting there and you're like, oh man, this dude's not ready to play. But like we didn't do anything in the off.
Right.
We didn't sign anybody. We didn't trade for anybody. We didn't keep the veteran that was in house. You don't want to be in that situation. You want to make sure like, oh no, he's got the playbook. He's got the checks. He's reading the defenses. He's been watching the film all preseason. Like he knows what he's gonna do. Um, so I wouldn't expect Mendoza to actually sit all year, but I think they need a good enough person to play week one.
Give me
Uh,
Jameis for the vibes in the locker
oh,
room.
there you
Could
go.
you imagine like a
No, James
locker
can't
room
be in
of
Vegas, man. We just can't.
Mendoza and
We just can't do
Jameis?
it. It just can't happen.
No, he'll be fine. He's not going to get in no trouble. He's just going to walk around and do man on the street interviews. It's going to be
I
like
I can't have him around that
he's
much
not going to
seafood for
actually
free,
be
man.
tossing.
We can't. We just can't. We
They're
just
the
can't do it.
buffets. It's the buffets.
Show up
Everything will
looking
be
like Jamarcus
good.
Russell. We can't have that. We can't. Um. All right. Is it time for the AFC East?
It is. It is. This is going to be an interesting one. I, who do you have left?
I have. I've used a lot of the veterans, haven't I? I have two locks. Josh
Probably
Allen, Drake
rookie
May.
quarterback.
I don't know.
Definitely.
I don't know. I don't know. I have two. I have two
Uh,
locks. Do you have two locks here?
I do. I do. Allen
Josh
and
Allen,
May
Drake May.
as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Dolphins are everybody's like pseudo QB change, but lock. I have Malik Willis to the Dolphins. Do you have Malik
Yeah, I
Willis?
do as well.
Okay.
I do as well.
Let's talk about this one for a bit. Malik Willis to the Dolphins. Pretty easy dot to connect. I know someone tweeted this and like a real person might have even been like Rappaport. Someone thought the promotion of Bobby Slowick could mean Tua sticks around. Obviously, we both traded Tua, so we don't think that. Um, so I think Miami, and they don't have a great cap situation, but between trading Tua, cutting Tyreek Hill, and then maybe like one restructure, like a Jalen Waddle restructure, gets them enough that they could do this mid-tier quarterback pseudo like Justin Fields' contract from last year, right?
Right.
They could get to that with Malik Willis, and it's funny when the Malik Willis thing and Halfley and the Dolphins all kind of or like he would just go wherever Halfley goes, all came together. I was like, how much overlap is there really between the defensive coordinator and the backup quarterback, right? But it might just be that sense of like just having a familiar face just like makes you feel, but it's not like it's the OC bringing him over, like the quarterback coach is coming with him. Um, and again, they're staying in house with but with Bobby Slowick becoming the OC, so like maybe that even points to they just are gonna re-sign Zach Wilson and roll with him and Quinn Ewers for a year and see what happened. And like their new GM said like, we believe in drafting a quarterback every year, basically. So like, do they do the what I said about the Browns, like Zach Wilson, day three guy we took last year, who at one point was supposed to be a first round pick, and then a day two pick in Nussmeier or Simpson. Like, I could see that, but the dots are too easy connected. It'd be too easy for them to create the money for it. So I have Malik Willis here.
Agreed, agreed. And I did struggle with trying to find the connection of Willis and Halfley other than them both being on the Packers. Because I don't know if he's even bringing a single Packers offense. I mean, there's probably one at least, but there's a couple defensive coaches that I was able to find, but I
Hmm.
wasn't able to find like a quarterbacks coach that's, coming from Green Bay. So I think on paper it kind of makes sense, but who knows what this offense is even going to want to try to do, right?
Right. Hmm.
And it's not like Sloak has worked with a quarterback like Malik Willis, in terms of play style. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I do have down, like you mentioned, just going in-house and trying to roll with like yours, even though
Hmm.
I don't know if he's top 35, 40 quarterback in the league, but
Right.
I financially they can't do a whole lot. So it's kind of few and far between. Maybe they're a Mac Jones team. That's another team that I considered for he is a Florida guy, so he'd be going back quote unquote home.
And Slowick worked
So
for Shanahan, so there's a connection there. It wasn't obviously at the same
yeah.
time, but there that makes sense. Hmm.
Yeah, outside of that, it's tough to predict what the Dolphins are going to do here because, maybe go rookie quarterback, but you got to fall in love with one of them at this point because I think this has kind of shown, we didn't have that much movement. I think a lot of these teams are waiting for next year and waiting for
Yeah.
next year's quarterback class. And we've got Mendoza, and then, we might have one more each. I had
Hmm.
Nussmeier, you've
Hmm.
been talking up Simpson,
Hmm.
and yeah, the Dolphins, man.
And Simpson, it wouldn't surprise me because I know as soon as they benched Tua, I just started putting Simpson in all my mocks at the Dolphins at like 11 or whatever it was. But it's starting to feel like he's not gonna be that early of a first round pick.
No,
Which is why I put him more in the other conversations we've talked about. Um, and yeah, this like it's just too clean, it's too easy. I do like the Mac Jones is interesting. And Mac Jones and his body type made me think about like if Slokes is just gonna get the band back together, could he go get Davis Mills, right? Could he trade something for Davis Mills? Is Davis Mills a free agent yet? I don't even know. Um, but like Slowik's literally hiring the Texans assistant O line coach to be his O line coach. It seems like he's putting this offensive staff together more than Halfley is. So yeah, who does he know? Where has he been? Right. So do they? I bet he was there with Trey Lance at the same time. Now I don't know if Trey Lance feels warm and fuzzy about the
yeah,
49ers and anybody he was around there with. But in terms of guys like Slowik has actually worked with, yeah, what are those connections? Um, but yeah, the Malik Willis thing just kind of makes too much sense. He fits right into what they can create from a cap perspective. I'm sure he would like to be with somebody that he is at least somewhat familiar on. Um, so when he's choosing like his free agent destinations, this one would make sense. But yeah, I'm glad we both kind of were in that same point of like, because whenever he's in big team meetings, right, when there's offense and defense, Havlic's probably very rarely the one talking. We're talking about his time in Green Bay, and then after that, like you're all over the place. The backup quarterback's not hanging out with the defensive coordinator and on the practice field or at practice. Like game days, they're not going over stuff together. Like I just don't know what that true relationship is, but they at least know each other. It's a familiar face. All right,
yeah.
the Jets. Ronan, stop me if you've heard this before. But the Jets are the wild card. I mean, I remember last year I mentioned this. Jameis Winston's getting a lot of play tonight. My combination was a prediction of Tyrod Taylor and Jameis Winston last year for the Jets. So you never know what's going to happen. But well, I won't say what we expect. Go ahead. What did you do for the Jets?
This is where I had Kyler Murray. And yeah,
Okay.
financially, I'm not even 100% sure if they'd be able to stretch it or, how I didn't look on over
Hmm.
the cap for
Yeah. Yeah.
where
Yeah.
they would be at for that entire deal. Um, but I think situation wise, it would be a good fresh start for Kyler in terms of who he's surrounded by. Because I don't think that the Jets are completely decimated talent wise, and they have the capital to be able to add some. Now they have to hit it out of the park. And I'm not completely sold on Aaron Glenn, but I do think that this is kind of a move that Aaron Glenn has to make because I don't see them drafting a quarterback sticking with Aaron Glenn. So I think that this would, in a sense, be a desperation move for Glenn to to stick around after firing his entire staff, right? And he's somehow not to blame. So I think that they have to make a big splash here. Um, Kyler paired with Brees and Garrett Wilson on paper is a pretty enticing trio
Hmm.
offensively, and I think that you can absolutely fill in things around them. They have the two first round picks, and like you mentioned before, it's not like you have to give up one of those first. It's not like you have to even give up
Yep.
one of the your second, right? So
No.
you're able to add talent around Kyler and onto that defense still while making an actual difference at quarterback, other than, going for one of these quarterbacks who nobody's completely in love with, nobody's really sold on. There's upside, for some of these guys, but ultimately there's no true QB2 who you can roll out and completely rely on to be a day one starter and expect to be ready for it.
Yeah. Um, yeah, Kyler, Brees, and Garrett Wilson. The those offensive weapons plus a mobile quarterback with a big arm who has sometimes trouble seeing the field. Where have we heard that formula before? It was last year with Justin Fields. Two different reasons for issues seeing the field, but seeing issues seeing the field nonetheless. Um, yeah, Justin Fields is going to be out of there. We didn't put Justin Fields as a starter anywhere. Is that dream gone? Is our dream finally dead? You think?
I think so. I think he's going to be a pretty quality backup. Maybe, gosh, I don't know if he gets another crack at it with him going to Pittsburgh and then to New York. It just
Yeah.
really seems like he's kind of going to have to fill into that backup role.
And I think he'll be a good backup man because the thing
Absolutely.
that keeps him from like really unlocking his full potential is just like not being much of a risk taker. Like he just wants things to be wide open and like that's what a lot of coaches want their backup to do. Just like don't turn the ball over. And if he can occasionally just like break off an explosive run, like that's a huge deal. So still hope Justin Fields, gets what he's looking for and has a long career if he wants it as a good backup. So shout out Justin Fields. Um I remember doing the
Shout
show
out
with
to
you
him.
last year, and I was just like, Justin Fields, he's got to be back in Pittsburgh, and nope, nope, here
Has
we are.
to.
Lord, how things have changed. So I agree with everything you said about Aaron Glenn. I think he's got to make a swing. I think he's grasping at straws. Um, but instead of Kyler, I went with my guy Gino. I went with Gino getting another job
Okay.
this year. Um,
Back in New York. Full circle,
back
man.
back in New York where it all started. Um, Now we have no idea who the Jets offensive coordinator is going to be. I had a Freudian slip here and I wrote who the Jets head coach will be, which is hilarious. But it will be Aaron Glenn, at least for a little bit this season, we believe. But we still don't know who the offensive coordinator is going to be. But Smith is a veteran. Gino is a veteran who was playing his best ball of his career just like a couple years ago at this point. Um, and if they write off last year as just kind of it was a fluke bad situation in Vegas, I like the idea of training something small for Gino, pairing him with a draft pick. I said earlier, I put Ty Simpson for the Jets. I just the math on that versus the Browns was just the Jets have more capital, so they can take the swing a little bit earlier. So let's say the Jets did it at
Right.
33 or whatever, and then the Browns took Nussmeier at 39 or whatever I said those picks were. Um, I like the idea of trading something small for Geno to just be somebody that has a like I won't say high ceiling, but like pretty good ceiling, like more than just your like average and like right in your above average group. He can give you some real play, especially with the offensive line, a guy like Garrett Wilson, and if you do this and you use those two early picks you're gonna have on, if you get a wide receiver in there with one of those two picks, yeah, you and just let Gino rip it for a little while. Like you can do something with that. That's at least respectable enough to watch. And Gino plus a draft pick feels like it's the most trying to save my job route for Aaron Glenn because Gino is like pretty ready made. Like even if Kyler or Tua came in, you wouldn't necessarily feel like, hey, week one, we know this is going to start off hot, especially with the questions about who the play caller is going to be. Gino, I think, gives you the highest floor of those three, at least for the first couple months. But then you also do a like pretty good investment at as a rookie quarterback, and you say, well, if I get this guy in for 5 games at the end of the year when we're eliminated and he's pretty good, hey, I'm the guy that brought him in. My OC that I hired worked with him, give me another year to work with him, and I bet we have something here. Um, so that combo feels like it'd be the best way for Aaron Glenn to also keep his job, which is the name of the game at this point. So this is where I put Gino. This is where I put Ty Simpson um, for the Jets.
I could easily see it. And is Gino's contract up at the end of this, or right now is he a free agent?
He's
Because I
not a
was gonna,
free
that might
agent.
be
What is he?
a good option for the Raiders, to just keep him if he's still gonna be there
And
and
that
have
was
him roll out for the first 4 or 5 games of this season.
if he
Not to
didn't.
switch it back over to the Raiders.
Well, that's fine. Nobody wants to talk about the Jets. If he didn't turn the ball over as much as he did for the Raiders this year, um, because again, I'm thinking about like what Brady is going to value, right? And above all else, Brady's going to value taking care of the football. Like at the end of the day, that's how Brady sees the number one job of the quarterback. And if the Raiders had been just as bad, but it was just because Gino was just like checking it down or throwing out of bounds, like they're just we're never getting offense going or even getting sacked a bunch. I
Hmm.
like that would have been perfect. You just let Gino stay with this team. You let him ride out the year. You put all the blame on the coaching staff, and you say, Gino, you're gonna be the starter because that's ideal, right? If you're good for 2 more years, man, and Mendoza sits and just develops for 2 years, like great, we love that. But it's Tom Brady, and I don't think he's gonna let Gino stick around to say, dude, you had
Yeah.
however many interceptions he had. Um, I think it's going to be a clean break. But I agree with that's like the cleanest and actually the best way to do it if Gino just stayed. But no, and he's under contract for 2026 and 2027.
Oh, wow,
No
okay.
guarantees in 27. The Raiders, if they cut him before June 1st, would have a dead cap hit of 18.5 million, which again is nothing for the Raiders. But if they trade him, it's nothing. If they trade him, or according to over the cap, it would not be an issue at all for their cap situation. So again, if Kyler was a fourth, Tua's a 6 or 7, like if Gino for a fifth round pick as the Jets, I think I would absolutely do.
100%. And
Although it'd be funny
ultimately,
if the
I
Jets
think it's
go get Cliff Kingsbury, like would that help or hurt trying to get Kyler, do you think?
hurt, hurt.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Just checking. Just checking. Yeah, go get Geno Smith, man. Who Uh, I'm thinking about the Jets' potential pool and who would actually want to go to the Jets. And like, what's Shane Waldron doing right now? I know it didn't work out for him in the Bears, but wasn't he there when Gino was doing good for them? Should he just? I'm
True.
gonna look that up right now. Um,
Give it another whirl. That's his guy.
when was Shane Waldron there? It had to be those years, right?
I
Shane
think so.
Waldron, Seattle OC 2021 to 2023. Yeah, man, absolutely. Because 2024 was when it started to fall off for Gino a little bit in Seattle. All right, yeah. So yeah, just go get Shane Waldron. Nobody will be excited except for Gino, and it'll be good for 5 weeks. And then you go to Ty Simpson. Oh, the Jets, man, the Jets. Um,
It's a good one to end on.
should we? Uh, are we really at? Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Yeah, man, that was it. All right, we did it. So ultimately, I ended up with like 5 real changes for week one. I did 2 midseason changes, calling JJ McCarthy a midseason change, and then uh, the Browns just let all those quarterbacks that I mentioned get a few starts, and then I had 3 that were just because of injury: Daniel Jones, Patrick Mahomes, and Michael Penix. But I had 5 true changes, and that was Kyler to the Steelers, Geno Smith to the Jets, Mariota slash Mendoza to the Raiders, Tua to the Cardinals, and then one more in there somewhere, right? Did I really only have four? One, two. Oh gosh, that would be such a bummer. And there's no way that's gonna happen. Something else is gonna have to shake loose here. Oh, Malik Willis to the Dolphins. Malik Willis to the Dolphins would be five. Was that about how many actual changes you had? I think we were pretty
Yeah,
much in line.
yeah,
And was it the
because I
same
had,
teams?
I believe so. I don't think
Jets,
we
Dolphins,
were.
Raiders. Oh well,
I had
Steelers. You still had Aaron
Vikings.
Rodgers, and you had Vikings. That's what it was.
I had
That was our
Vikings and
one.
you had Steelers. Yeah,
Yep. God, it can't be Aaron Rodgers.
yeah.
Um,
Mac Jones Vikings, Tua Cardinals. Shador, no.
Kyler Jets. You
Fernando,
had Mendoza
yeah,
Raiders.
Kyler Jets and then Malik to the
Malik Willis.
Dolphins.
Yep. All right. So yeah, we're pretty much in lockstep there. So that is the what was once way too early quarterback predictions. Not no longer so much way too early. We'll maybe we'll rebrand for year six. We'll see. Ronan, anything else on quarterbacks, Super Bowl, state of the position, state of the NFL before we get out of here?
I'm excited for the Super Bowl, obviously this weekend. That's going to be a huge one. Those two defenses are going to be flying around. I think it's ultimately going to come down to the coaching battle, and I'm interested to see, McDonald. He's a newer coach in terms of being a head coach for just 2 years. Vrabel, he's been around the block, but this is obviously his first Super Bowl. It's going to be a fun one. Those are two great coaches going head to head, as well as obviously rosters.
It's going to be a fun Super Bowl. It's got to be down with the Patriots. We love Drake May. We support Drake May. We can't have the Patriots winning a Super Bowl. What's your official prediction? Give me your prediction.
Ooh, on the spot. I'm going to say, do you want score or do you just want
If
winner?
you want to throw out a score, do it.
Gosh, I don't think it's going to be super high scoring. I'm going to say 27-23.
The day and age where
I
you could
don't
say
even
it's
know
not going to
how
be
we'd
super
get to
high scoring and you
23.
went to 27-23. Nope, it's
Yeah,
locked
right.
in. Take it. So who wins? Who wins 27-23?
Patriots. I look behind me, man.
Woo!
They just whooped our tail
All right, you're
in the
right.
NFC
I don't know what I was
Championship.
thinking. Yeah, you're right. So
The only
23 is
redeeming quality.
easily. Oh wait, 23 would be Seahawks. So uh Drake May taking a safety. I could see that.
Yeah,
We
there
could
we
make that
go.
happen
There we
pretty
go.
easily.
Something like that.
Um, or I guess just one missed extra point. That's probably more makes more sense. Anyways, whatever. Yeah, I think my prediction. Again, this episode just came out Tuesday with Ben, where I actually made a prediction. I think I said like 31-21 Seahawks. Um, all right. But yeah, everybody enjoy the Super Bowl. Everybody enjoy the quarterback carousel now that the coaching carousel is done. Ronan, thank you so much for being on once again to do the show, man. A yearly favorite, as always. You brought it. Not quite as we don't have as much room for the spicy takes as Carson Wentz to the Steelers anymore, but fun nonetheless. We got Kyler to the Steelers, so I'll take that for
Yes,
this year, I
sir.
guess. All right, everybody, that's gonna do it. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure if you are getting ready for the draft now that the Super Bowl is just about upon us or over, head over to the Box Score Network YouTube channel. We'll have a ton of draft content there. Going to be flooding that over the next couple of months before the draft happens. But Simon Friends Podcast, make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, comment, let us know where you think some of these quarterbacks are going to end up. We really like to hear you. And we will talk to you soon. So at your Super Bowl parties, everyone have fun and be safe out there.